نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. Brothers in Islam, we know that Muslims are going through hardship. We know that Muslims are going through war, through economic problems. Muslims, they have hundreds of thousands of problems. They have been killed, expelled from their homes. And we know that Islam has been criticized severely by the enemies of Islam. We know all these things that are happening. But, however, for a Muslim who is a real Muslim, who's a wise Muslim, who knows that all these things, that doesn't mean anything, because he's optimistic and see the other side of what's happening to Muslims now. A wise Muslim knows that the enemies of Islam and the Muslims are fighting against Islam because Islam exists, because Islam is spreading very fast all around the world. A wise Muslim knows that this kind of attack on Islam and Muslim is a good indication. It's a good indication and a sign that Islam is alive. And the Muslims are becoming more aware to what's happening to them. Therefore, a wise Muslim is optimistic. He's not pessimistic. He gives hope to people and encourages them. He does not let Muslims down. He does not make them to give up. Because the Prophet warned those people that they let the other Muslims down. The Prophet ﷺ says, when a person says that all Muslims now are all weak and Islam is now weak, the Prophet ﷺ says he is the weakest among them. He is ruined because he discourages other people. That's why Allah says, who despairs of the mercy of Allah are those who are astray. A real believer is like a green leaf, does not fall no matter how strong the storms are. An optimistic Muslim knows that Allah promised Muslims, if they stay patient and if they have hope, finally they will be successful. Allah says, don't become weak, meaning against your enemy. Don't be sad, and you will be superior if you are a true believer. A real Muslim who have patience and hope knows that Allah says, along with every hardship is relief. He knows that victory at the end is for the oppressed people. A Muslim should have hope and spread optimism, even if he sees other Muslims have no hope and they are pessimistic. That is why they say that the most beautiful and wonderful architecture in the world is to build a bridge of hope on a river of despair and hopelessness. And we have to know that what's going on to Muslims all around the world is just a test from Allah. Allah says, Allah will not leave the believers in the state what they are in until He separates what is evil from what is good. And He says that in another ayah, then what is evil, what is falsehood, what's not true, is like a foam. At the end will disappear and vanish. But what is true, what's right, what's the beneficial for people will stay at the end. And that is the message that Muslims should get. And I just want to mention one story from the Prophet ﷺ. He's our role model. He's the one we have to follow. We have to look how he was dealing with the hard situations. How optimistic was the Prophet ﷺ? When he was in Mecca, he was calling people for Islam. But when he saw that there are no benefits would just waste your time with those people. He didn't give up. He didn't say, that's it, and I sit down, and that's all I have to do. No, he used other methods. He went to the city of Taif. In the city of Taif, he was calling people to Islam, but didn't work, because they stoned him and they hit the Prophet ﷺ. When he was back to home, to Mecca, his heart was broken, and all his body was blood. And in this hard and tough time, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sent Malaika to the Prophet ﷺ and said to him, just order. If you just order that Allah will destroy these two nations, these two cities, Mecca and Taif. But the Prophet ﷺ, he was so merciful. He was so optimistic. He said, no, I hope just one day that just generations, even people in next generation, just one of them says there's one God. He says, La ilaha illallah. Then look, the Prophet, how optimistic was the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He didn't say, yes, they just do what Allah says and destroy these nations, these two cities. That's not going to with the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, because he is the Prophet of mercy. So we have to learn from the Prophet. We have to be optimistic. What's going on all around the world is nothing. In reality, is nothing. It's just a test. We will pass all these things, and at the end, victory is for Muslims. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to give us hope, to give us sabr. Ameen, ameen, walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل. ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون ولذكر الله أكبر. أقم الصلاة يرحمك الله.